Data science is an information consultant here at Channels Television. Babajide Ogunsanwo is here to share insights into the issue at hand, which is the deregulation of the oil sector and whether or not oil prices are going to go up. Babajide, great to see you. So Nigerians have heard these words over and again. Subsidy, under recovery, over recovery, they're not new. But the NNPC has now revealed that it cannot continue to bear the cost, of the regulation, which costs more than 100 billion naira every month. Why are we still talking about this today?
We need to go through history to understand why petrol is so very important, and that's because precisely 10,000 days ago, I'm talking about November 8, 1993, that was the date where for the very first time Nigerians started to pay for petrol in naira. Prior to November 8, 1993, Nigerians had been paying for petrol in kobo. And on this day, the president, Ernest Shonekan, moved the petrol price from 70 kobo to 5 naira. November 8, 1993. Here's why this was important for the 50 million adult Nigerians. It was like a nuclear bomb. Less than 10 days after this decision was made, Sani Abacha took over. Again, that lets you understand how attached and how emotionally connected Nigerians are to petrol. Now, there's some good news and there's some bad news. Let's start with the good news. The good news, going by what the NNPC has released, billions of naira that goes into fuel payments as a differential every day. It simply means if this is stopped, the government will have more money to pump into health, education, and military budgets. Now, here's the bad news. The bad news shows that post-fuel expenditure, families will have less money available. Especially for northern families, it simply means that it will become harder for them to keep their children in schools. Whenever it becomes harder to keep their children in schools, it simply means the school dropout rate will rise. When school dropout rate rises, then the number of unemployable Nigerians will also rise. Whenever the number of unemployable Nigerians rise, then the frustration rate will increase. Whenever frustration rate increases, crime rate increases. And whenever crime rate increases, it gets us to that bus stop that Fela described as everything don't scatter.
So why is it difficult then to keep petrol prices stable?
We will have to look at what has really happened, not just globally, what has happened in Nigeria since 1970. And the evidence, like you've said, has shown that in Nigeria, whatever goes up does not always come down, especially with petrol prices. And if we focus on the chart that is about to come up, here's what you notice. We've seen petrol go from 5 kobo in 1970 to 20 naira in 2000, and now 165 by 2020. We had seen it at 145 naira. If you follow these trends, you'll see that pump price, the retail pump price, has consistently gone up, which simply means that if we look at the next decade, we're in 2020 now, 2021, the evidence does show that following these trends without preempting, by 2030, even before we get to 2030, these prices will rise. What is really connected to petrol price rise is two major things: the cost, the exchange rate, the naira to dollar exchange rate, and the global price of crude oil. Those are the two major things. But here's why Nigerians are concerned. And that is, we've seen a lot of people discuss that petrol price in Nigeria is relatively cheaper, especially when you compare it to the developed economies, Saudi Arabia and the US. That is true. But I want you to listen carefully to this. While petrol price is cheaper in the US and in Saudi Arabia, we need to look at it relative to the income of families there. And one way to look at it is to look at the median income or to look at the minimum wage. In today's Nigeria, your 30,000 naira minimum wage, if all you decided to do with it was to buy fuel, you will only be able to buy 180 liters. In the United States and Saudi Arabia, with your minimum wage, you can buy 1,500 liters of fuel. And so whenever we're having that discussion on the price of petrol, we need to look at the affordability for citizens. That is the challenge, not that price.
I think that's what a lot of Nigerians have been harping on. But very quickly, is the regulation of the petrol price a change in policy or program of the government?
What we see is that the government is going more towards, is leaning towards the private sector in some certain areas. We're seeing possibility of highway concessions. We are seeing the government trying to look at fully deregulating these petrol prices, while we also see the government still playing heavily on some certain areas, especially the refinery. But let's look at these big numbers. The big numbers, petrol pump price under President Buhari. And we've seen now 9 times the petrol price has changed. This is the gold standard. Prior to now, former President Obasanjo had that record. Under his period, we saw petrol price change 7 times. Now we've seen petrol price change. The first was a good move from a lot of Nigerians, which was on the 1st of January 2016, there was a drop in petrol price by 50 kobo. But after that, we've seen petrol price move to 145 naira, 125 naira. August 05 last year, we saw 148 naira, and that has been the journey. So for the president, the journey started with trying to reduce the petrol price. The reality now is that the country is no longer earning sufficient revenue, and for the government, petrol and paying that subsidy seems to be a luxury.
Wow, Babajide, thank you so much for breaking it
down. You know, in the final analysis, we're in difficult times. Difficult times can define you. Difficult times can diminish you, but difficult times can develop you. But you will have to take the decision.
Well, that's up to us, everyone, I guess. Thanks again for showing up tonight.
The pleasure is all mine.